Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of the Scene to Screen Film Podcast. I'm Kieran, and joining me yet again is my good friend AJ Tarrant.
Now then, how you doing?
And this is our spoiler-free review. It's actually the first review we are doing for this podcast, and it's for Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. Alright, so before we get properly into this review, I just want to talk for a second about expectations, because I'm kind of interested to hear what you were kind of expecting from this film. We've heard a lot of positive stuff coming out of America about Three Billboards, so I'm curious to know if all that hype affected you walking into the cinema.
Yeah, well, I'd say I was definitely looking forward to it. I had some reservations, not many, but from the first couple of trailers, I was kind of trying to figure out its angle. It felt like it was going for a more serious direction from, particularly from Seven Psychopaths, which was quite a sort of weird, humorous film in a lot of ways. And I wasn't sure if it was quite going to work, so I was kind of a little bit worried. I was expecting it to be quite harsh, quite coarse, with a kind of really sort of intense performance from Francis McDormand, but I trusted Martin McDonagh. I just wanted to see for myself what it was like.
Right, yeah, because for me, this film, it was kind of a really strange experience, because other than what I saw in the first trailer, I didn't really do any research or look into the plot or anything like that, so I had very little knowledge of what the film was actually about when I walked into the cinema, it's a weird experience for me because I'm usually the guy that watches every trailer, reads every bit of news, casting, all that kind of stuff, so this was one of the first times I'd really walked in and not known anything about the film, and that was really fun and a different experience for me, but of course I'd seen the Golden Globes, so I knew that the film was getting a lot of attention, so I knew that I was going to see something that a lot of people really liked, but I don't think that it really affected my expectations in any way. So yeah, just getting straight into the review section of this review, and remember not to give any spoilers, but just a basic outline. What did you think of Three Billboards?
Well, I'll probably start talking a bit about the performances. Francis McDormand was obviously great. I was surprised that the performance in the first trailer, it gave away a different side to the character that wasn't always present in the film. The performance was sort of surprisingly understated, I think. You got the sense of power from her and how sort of emotionally powerful that she is as a person, but she wasn't as full on as the trailer made it out to be. The trailer kind of showed all of her, or a large part of her, kind of more outbursty moments. But there's so many other moments where she's just alone, or she's with her son, she's reflecting on life and thinking about things, and all of it was perfect. Sam Rockwell and Woody Harrelson, again, great supporting roles. In fact, I thought all of the supporting cast was pretty much perfect for it. We'll probably talk more about Sam Rockwell and Woody Harrelson a little bit later, but I just want to say that Sam Rockwell's arc was very, very impressive. I'm not going to say much more than that because you do kind of need to see it to understand, but I don't really think there are many actors that could have sold that performance as well as Rockwell did. It starts really strong with these large shots of the dilapidated billboards just sort of standing there, and they just sort of linger on them for a while, which I liked. It almost eased you into the film before everything started kicking off. The kind of battle between Mildred Hayes, Frances McDormand's character, and Chief Willoughby, which is Woody Harrelson's character, the way that they were pitted against each other throughout the film also wasn't what I was expecting. It was a very multi-layered dynamic between the two of them, and picking a side was basically impossible because they were both just shown to be people stuck in a situation they'd really rather not be in, and one side has nothing to do but lash out, and the other side has little to do but just kind of hold the weight of the fact that he can't do anything on his shoulders, and that does really impact the plot and the way that it goes. I got quite a Coen Brothers vibe from this, which was definitely present in Bruges and Seven Psychopaths, but I felt it really came to the forefront in this film. People have noted a Tarantino influence in his earlier films, which I completely agree with, but it feels almost completely absent from Three Billboards. It really kind of pulls itself back. There's none of the postmodernism of Seven Psychopaths. and it's not nowhere near as nihilistic as in Bruges. I feel like this is his most mature work to date. I'd say I still prefer In Bruges overall because it's just one of those really strong debut films that just appears out of nowhere and just takes you by surprise. But if this is a sign of what's to come for Martin McDonagh, then I'm really, really excited. I love how he mixes his theatre background into a film. Like, you can feel that he has a theatre background because of the way that he sets all the characters up and he puts all of the pieces in place, and then they start playing against each other, and the sets aren't sort of like huge, so you haven't got massive set pieces or anything like loads of action, but yet it really benefits from being a film at the same time. Like, this isn't something you could just kind of say, oh, it's a sort of glorified play. Like, the way that he uses the camera to kind of focus on characters' faces, and sort of the way that the camera follows the characters sometimes. There's a really sort of intense scene with Sam Rockwell where we follow him from one place to another. He does something quite shocking and then back again. And I'm not sure if it was all like kind of Birdman one-shot style, because I can't remember that vividly, but that's what it felt like. Like, you're on these characters' backs, you're on their shoulders, you're just watching them unfold in their environment. I really, really liked the way that he now fully fleshes out the subject matter. I always felt like In Bruges and Seven Psychopaths really paid respect to what it was talking about, but that's really sort of at the fore in this film. It's a serious, dark drama film. The black humour's still there, which is natural and just a part of Martin McDonagh's style, but it actually plays a backseat to the conversations. When the humour's at its best, it's when it's coming directly from the conversation. The best jokes in the film aren't jokes. They're turns of phrase or reactions from the characters that just seem like genuine reactions that are just, they almost feel improvised, although, in all likelihood, they weren't. You feel like these characters are so believable that these are just words coming out of their mouths. People are funny. People are naturally funny. So these didn't really feel like jokes. They felt like just people dropping in sort of zingers and witticisms in conversation like normal people do. Basically, I really, really enjoyed Three Billboards, and I think if this is a direction that McDonagh might take for his next film, I'd love to see him further refine that mix of drama, tragedy and comedy, and just see where he can go from here, because I've got full faith that he is probably going to end up being one of the most notable directors of our generation, at least one of them. So that's what I think of it.
Well, like you, I really enjoyed Three Billboards for a lot of different kind of reasons. First of all, I think the story and the narrative are handled really, really well. I've liked each of McDonagh's previous films, even Seven Psychopaths, it's usually considered to be a slight disappointment. But then in terms of like quality and experience of watching a film, Three Billboards is easily his best piece of work, in my opinion. We've seen McDonagh's previous films that he's able to really deliver an entertaining mix of comedy and drama. But with Three Billboards, he's blended black comedy with this really kind of hard-hitting, serious drama. And it just works. I mean, there were certain scenes where I was laughing, others where I was nearly crying, and more often than not, I was laughing and crying in the same scene, which it's a really difficult kind of tone to capture, but it's one that McDonagh implements and uses expertly in this film. And then, of course, like you said, you've got these performances, which are undoubtedly some of the best I've seen in a very, very long time. Frances McDormand's performance, she kind of carries the entire film, and this is a character that has a massive amount of anger and a considerable amount of guilt as well, and I think McDormand does an amazing job of showing us how this character feels or what she's thinking without actually speaking. A lot of the time we get characters that they tell you everything that's going on or everything that they're thinking, but I find it more intriguing and impressive if the actor can tell you everything you need to know without saying a word, and McDormand is able to do that from the very first scene to the very last scene, which is just massively impressive. For me, as much as I loved Frances McDormand's performance, I think the supporting performance from Sam Rockwell was probably the most intriguing aspect of the film, because he's playing this kind of racist dumb piece of shit police officer, which he does very well for the most of the film. But as the story kind of progresses, we explore the different layers of that character and see different sides of his personality, and that's a complexity that Rockwell plays really well, because like you said, not a lot of actors could pull that off, because in certain scenes you can see that kind of inner battle inside of the character before he kind of chooses to do the right thing or the wrong thing, and of course he usually ends up doing the wrong thing, but yeah, that performance just really stood out as a highlight in this film. There are another few performances that stood out as well, but I don't want to get too much into them just because I don't want to spoil anything, but Woody Harrelson is amazing in this film. He plays the police chief, and it's kind of this lawless town, so when you kind of first meet that character, you kind of think you know what role he's going to play in the story, but then the film kind of shifts and everything kind of changed, so I really enjoyed that aspect of the story, and Woody Harrelson's character really played into how the film defies what you kind of expect walking in. If I was going to pick an issue in the film, and I don't think there are many issues, I would say that I wasn't a massive fan of the ending. Again, I don't really want to spoil anything, but I think ambiguous endings work for some films, but I think this is a story that would have benefited from a more solid ending, but I'm not going to say anything more than that. Like I said, I don't really want to spoil anything. So yeah, like I said, this is a really well-made, funny, emotional film, which is supported by some of the best performances I've seen in a very long time. That's it for what I think of the film, but before we close up this review, is there anything else that you wanted to say, and how would you rate Three Billboards?
Right, well, first off, I do have another thing to say about it, which is mostly about Rockwell's character, because it's such a crazily sort of detailed sort of performance. But I'm feeling a sort of solid 8 out of 10 on this.
Yeah, I'd say the same, a solid 8 out of 10. I think that's a fair rating for this film.
But yeah, Rockwell's character, again, we're not going to spoil anything, but I think the film's got a lot to say about society. Some people have taken it the wrong way, and I kind of understand it, but there's this sort of sense that McDonagh wants to present a character who is both as bad as he seems, but also not as bad as he seems. Someone who is also naturally kind of at the mercy of his own lack of intelligence, lack of perhaps like a proper upbringing, and how much does natural intelligence shape a person's actions? How much does rumour count towards truth? And how much does a scenario actually mean that a person is something? And I think Rockwell just sells this character really well. He almost sort of, it's funny because he plays it very comically. He reminded me at times of some of the characters from Mike Judge's Idiocracy in the way that he talked, so almost like a sort of parody of the classic dumb American or dumb Southern American, that whole sort of hick hillbilly sort of type. But I feel like Rockwell turns what could have been a one-note performance that then turns into a kind of character arc that you're not expecting, into just it's saying something about people. Again, I could probably talk more in depth about this, but I think that McDonagh offers us hope for the future in offering this ability to change if you really, perhaps if more people believe in you, you're able to change. And I thought that was a really nice little, a nice detail that McDonagh put into his performance, or put into the script to allow Rockwell to bring it out in his performance.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty much all of our thoughts on this film. Be sure to check out our previous episodes and subscribe to make sure you never miss another episode of this podcast. You can listen on SoundCloud, iTunes, YouTube. Thanks for checking out this review, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Have a good one, guys.